The escaped Pennsylvania inmate there that continues to capture national attention there as it happened last week, now going on into this week as authorities continue to search for that inmate. For more on this right now, we want to go out to Fox's Mills Hayes, who has been covering this story and has the latest information on a lot of new information that came out today.
Hi, Mike. Well, police say that about 500 tips have come in so far, and today they announced that there was a drone that was flying prior to Burham's escape last week, and they're looking for more information about it because they say it could be connected to his escape. Hundreds of police are on the hunt for escaped inmate Michael Burham.
I have a strong belief that he is receiving help.
Elizabeth Hensley-Siever says she dated the suspected killer. She says Burham has more than a decade of military training and police may be underestimating him.
They just thought he was the everyday guy who was going to sit there complacently. And I believe that from the minute they caught him, he was probably planning an escape or looking for an escape.
This is not the first time he's been on the run. Burham is accused of killing his ex-girlfriend, Kayla Hodgkins, and then setting another ex's car on fire before leading police on a manhunt from Pennsylvania to South Carolina in May.
He's a smart guy. He loves strategy, and he loves to think about what he's got versus what you've got. So I think they thought they were dealing with an idiot. He outsmarted them so many times now. And I hate it. I hate that he's on the loose after what he did to Kayla.
Police say Burham used gym equipment to reach a hole in the roof and then climb down a rope made of bed sheets.
There's a roof, there's a hole in the roof with a cage, and he was in there with 3 other inmates.
Warren County Commissioner Jeff Eagleston says a guard was watching the inmates on camera, but responded too late to catch him.
Everything associated with the yard and the people inside and how they're observed is going to be reviewed and potentially changed.
Right now, there is a reward for any information that may lead to Burham's arrest. It is around $19,500, and it's actually gone up about $10,000 in the past few days as police search for more information that could help find Burham. Mike?
Yeah, we're hoping that the search concludes soon there with the capture there of that inmate. Mills, thanks so much for giving us this update right here on Live Now from Fox. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we want to continue on right here on this subject here as it's, like I was talking about, getting a lot of national attention. Right now, I want to turn things over to my colleague Andy Mack there. He talked to a survivalist talking about what it's like for this inmate possibly that is still out there and dealing with the elements out in nature. Let's listen right here on Live Now from Fox.
Well, the search continues for the escaped prisoner there, Michael Burham, as local and federal authorities continue to search for that escaped prisoner. We're going to be joined now by a founder and owner of Coal Cracker Bushcraft, Dan Womack. Thank you so much for joining us here on Live and Now from Fox. And of course, Burham is described as a survivalist. Maybe just give me your definition early. What is a survivalist, and maybe what challenges are there in Pennsylvania where you are located?
Yeah, so a survivalist is somebody who can navigate and live in the woods pretty comfortably when it comes to it. Pennsylvania and anywhere really in the world comes down to just 4 things: fire, shelter, water, and food. If you can cover those bases, you can pretty much indefinitely live out in the woods. So they're going to be the main things that he needs to focus on. Now, the big part of that, because it's the summer months and those survival priorities change season to season, shelter and fire are really not going to be too much of an issue for him, because if he doesn't have a fire to stay warm, it doesn't matter. It's already warm out. And shelter, I mean, if it rains, you dry out pretty quickly. So it's going to come down to just securing water and finding food. And the food thing, even that itself, in a short-term scenario, a day, 2 days, 4 days, I mean, you can go without food. You're not going to feel the best, but you can go without food. So it's really the water and food thing is what it's going to come down to.
And you are currently in Pennsylvania. You might not be too close to the Allegheny National Forest where he's located, but certainly very dense forest there in the national forest. Maybe describe the challenges of that, because it is a very dense location. I've spent time in the Pittsburgh, the West Virginia area. It's very dense out there, just driving through it. Maybe what does that present? What type of challenges does that present, both for Burham potentially, but also authorities looking through all of this?
Yeah, so that ruggedness is number one. I mean, you're going to be burning a lot of calories moving up and down the mountains and just through thick brush like that. Being able to navigate in those mountains too, this time of the year with that very thick, heavy brush is going to be very, very difficult. And that ups the chances of injury. So if you're moving around and you can't see well and you're up and down the hills, the chances to slip and fall and get seriously injured, I mean, that just exponentially gets more and more as you go on here day in, day out.
And I imagine it's different, obviously, if you're being tracked by authorities versus if you're just trying to survive in the wild. But maybe how difficult would it be to track somebody? Because he likely would have to be moving. Would that be difficult? Would it not be difficult? Kind of put yourself in those shoes right now.
Well, if you're a very avid outdoor goer, survivalist in this case, if we're going to assume that he's at that level, his skill set is going to allow him to really move a lot more quickly and efficiently through a woodland setting than most officials, because that's not their normal operational area. They're not going to be probably used to that type of terrain and just searching in that. And with all of the vegetation and cover at this point, it's very easy to conceal yourself in that rugged landscape.
It is very, very interesting, because you, on for various shows, have spent some 51 days in the wild, and just being by yourself, being isolated in that way, although he may be or may not be getting help according to authorities. Maybe just talk about that aspect of it, just being alone and kind of being isolated in the woods.
Yeah, so in a normal scenario, you typically all your like senses, they're very like heightened, so you're very like almost nervous about things, even if you think you're the toughest person going. I mean, there's wild sounds at night in the woods. It's dark, it starts to get cold, and different things go through your mind. So if you add on top of that that authorities are coming for you, I can just imagine that plays a lot of psychological damage on you, as far as slowing you down or making you not think the way that you should be thinking to if you were trying to truly navigate and keep yourself safe in the woods.
Yeah, and just trying to be aware of maybe police on your tail. That is having another element to this. And we also have heard from authorities that he has a potentially an Army Reserve background, a military background. Maybe can you talk about that a little bit? Maybe how does that potentially help someone trying to survive in a scenario like this? Does the military set people up to potentially at least survive a little bit if they're kind of off the grid?
So yes, in a sense they do, but the bigger thing that we need to think about here is that they teach a lot of escape and evasion. So they're teaching their people, if you're lost behind enemy lines, how do we actually get out of this scenario? And that's really the situation he put himself in. So even though he's here, he's the enemy and they're coming for him. And he's trying to get away. So he has that skill set, and he has the understanding of if they're using dogs to track him, or thermal imaging, or if it's at night vision and different things like that. So he would have more awareness than the typical survivalist who goes out on a weekend or spends a night or two in the woods when it comes to that technology and the actual skill set of tracking people.
And just going back to just surviving there in this environment, maybe you said it could be an indefinite amount of time, but maybe how long do you think it could last? Because how long could a person survive out there in this forest with maybe very limited supplies that he may or may not have?
So in general, the fire, water, shelter thing, that can mostly be completed by most people with some skill set within the first 48 hours of being out there. The food situation is really what it comes down to, because you have to fuel your body over time. So although a lot of survivalists will say, well, I can go 3 weeks without food, that's a very difficult thing. I can tell you from personal experience, going 6 or 7 days without a bite of food and eating only one fish and then going a few more days, it really just wears on you mentally and physically. So can he stay out there indefinitely? Yes. The probabilities of that, I would say no. I would say you're looking around a 2-week type of stint and at that point, after that 2-week mark, I mean, he's really going to be physically probably getting degraded, especially just with the stress of somebody chasing you and trying to track you down. I would think you're about tapped out at that point.
Yeah, Dan Wowak, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. Any parting words, any more tidbits that you want to leave with us before I let you go?
No, thanks for having me on. I hope they get him sooner than later, and you know, justice served kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your time. Thank you for giving us this perspective, this context, because I think maybe a lot of people don't understand fully what could be going on through Michael Burham's head as he tries to evade police. Well, we appreciate you all, as always, here on Live Now.